All right, welcome. Thank you, Chloe, for joining me today. I am here talking to Chloe, one of our OTD students, about her social media campaign and occupational injustice issue that she decided to study this third semester. So, Chloe, why don't you introduce yourself and maybe tell when you'll graduate and maybe what areas of practice you're thinking you might want to join once you're all done with school.
Yeah, hi. Thank you for having me. My name is Chloe. I am graduating this Saturday with my bachelor's in rehab science, and then I'll graduate with my doctorate of OT in spring 2027. And I'm interested in working with adults in an outpatient setting. My capstone project is focused around assistive technology. So I also want to incorporate that into where I work in the future.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay, so you just finished up finals this week. Like you said, we have graduation this Saturday. But this semester you took a class called Community Advocacy and Leadership. And in that class, you learned about advocating at a higher level, community focused, and you found an occupational injustice from current events. Tell us what your topic was and how you got interested in that topic.
Yeah, so I studied a topic that had to do with quick trip discrimination, and this is where an employee with a disability wasn't given the necessary accommodations she needed for her job. And this lack of support affected her schedule and made her leave her job. So I thought this was really interesting because I think a lot of times workplace accommodations aren't really talked about, and when there's different injustices causing people to resign from their job, I think this is really important to look at and different ways that we can help as OTs, making workplaces more fair. Through this case, also, Quick Trip had to pay $35,000 since they didn't provide the necessary accommodations, and they also had to provide ADA training for all employees and managers because of this case. And this just kind of shows how these missing accommodations can create these barriers and lead to an occupational injustice.
Yeah, fascinating. I love how you're able to take, a very specific case and then make it to a greater kind of broader topic. So, what, maybe tell us a little bit more about ADA and workplace accommodations. What were maybe like the most common barriers you found to people actually implementing accommodations, or what were the common accommodations that weren't being provided? Kind of what did you find in your studies?
So, based off this case, it didn't say specifically what her disabilities were, but she did request that her job were to be modified. So that's the biggest accommodation I found is just some sort of modifications to make the job maybe easier if you can't walk or just different things like that. And then also, she wanted a little bit of less time just because being in the workplace can be very demanding. So, through this case, she ultimately could only work 9 hours based on what Quick Trip wanted to give her from filing accommodation requests. So, oftentimes, um, they're just not providing fair accommodations, or they'll try to make it so their employees work less, or um, they're just not providing the right accommodations, I guess.
Okay, okay. Um, so are there certain populations that are maybe impacted more? Like when you started looking up items for your social media campaign, what did you find there? Are there certain populations or certain disabilities that are impacted more than others related to accommodations?
I didn't find anything specifically on certain populations, but I did find that there's a wide array of populations that will not get these accommodations because employers think, oh, this doesn't really matter. Like, we're not going to get in trouble if we don't provide these accommodations. But in reality, just like Quick Trip, they're going to face a lot of, like, a lot of, like, they're going to get in trouble with the law
Sure.
ultimately.
Sure. Um, so what kind of information did you share in your social media campaign?
So for the first day, I put a poll out and I said, "Do you know your rights?" And I provided a little bit of information about the ADA and how they protect your right for fair treatment and accommodations at work. And through the poll, a lot of people did say they knew their rights. And then the second day, I linked the Quick Trip story and I named this day Stories That Matter, and I added a question and answer box that you could share your time where you saw unfair treatment at work. And I was actually surprised, like a lot of people did slide up and they said like things have been thrown at them or
My goodness.
just like unfair hours, like they were working a lot of like overtime, which is ultimately illegal. And then day three, I did OTs can help create fair workplaces and ensure that employees have necessary tools that they need for accommodations, just kind of sharing like OT's role in that. And then
Hmm.
day four, I linked some resources for how to request accommodations. And then on day five of my social media campaign, I just kind of wanted to restate the importance of inclusive workplaces. I shared make better decisions. 87% of the right to work and be part of the workplace.
Wow, those are some interesting statistics. I think potentially, unless you personally know someone with a disability who's struggling to work, this is probably something we may not think about a whole lot. When I think about this particular challenge, um, I think there could be a challenge for how OTs get involved because, for example, like Quick Trip, OTs don't work at Quick Trip, right? So, how would you recommend OTs get involved in helping with workplace accommodations and providing fair treatment of individuals with disabilities in the workplace?
Yeah, so I think that OTs could take a step by educating different employers about the different accommodations with the ADA requirements. This could even be as simple as like another social media campaign or like posting on TikTok or Instagram, some common social media sites, just getting the word out there because you never know who's going to see it. So something like
True.
that. Also, just helping employees identify like what supports they need and how to request them because a lot of times someone might need support or a client might need support, but they don't know the steps to receive that support. So just kind of educating people on that if they overhear something or they're working with clients that feel like they're not receiving that necessary support in their workplace. Also maybe just collaborating with human resources, and promoting awareness, within the community. This could just be like a workshop or even some sort of flyer, placed somewhere in the community to help reduce those barriers for people that have disabilities that work in workplaces.
Those are really great ideas. Um, Okay, so let's talk about what this process was like for you. Have you done maybe like advocacy through social media or community-based advocacy like this before? And what was the process kind of like for you?
So I have not advocated specifically on social media, so it was a little eye-opening just to see how many people did respond, like on the polls and on like the questions and answers. Just a lot of so also trying to figure out what order of slides I want to do on each day to best show this case and have people understand. Because at first, my slides were kind of like very wordy, and I was like, people aren't going to read these if
Yeah,
they're just filled with information. So I spent a lot of time just trying to figure out, okay, like what looks good for social media that people will actually spend like 10 seconds to read because they're not going to want to read my slide for 2 minutes each
sure.
day. And then just kind of like adding like hashtags and polls and stuff like that because a lot of people nowadays like the interactive things.
Of
So
course.
I wasn't used to doing that before, but just seeing how you can make a difference with even like a couple sentences a day was very eye-opening and created a lot of engagement.
Yeah, I love that. I think this assignment is so cool, um, to let students really kind of leverage social media. We hear so many negative things about social media, but you can really use it in a positive way for positive change also. So I think that's so cool. Um, what was the most challenging part about doing this project for you?
Um, I think the most challenging part was getting some of those questions because I wanted to answer them carefully, but also make sure that my information was backed by evidence and
Hmm.
that not just me responding with my own opinion. So there were a couple questions where I didn't know how to respond, but I did take that time to look at the research first and then try to answer it without a bias or just
Yeah,
answer it as best as I could.
great, great. Okay, so you're an OTD student and you've been working on starting the beginning planning aspects of your capstone project. You mentioned it's on assistive technology. Can you tell us a little bit more? Maybe what are you going to be doing? What is your emphasis within the area of assistive tech?
Yeah, so I actually have a unique capstone project. I'm going to actually be working with two different capstone sites. Most OTD students work with one, but
Hmm.
I'm going to be first working with Adaptive. They more so specialize on finding this adaptive equipment for people in the community and then going into these places and just implementing them, putting them into the different settings, and then I'm going to work with Blossom IDD, which is in Cedarburg, and this is more so just working with clients to see what assistive technology works best for them. So it's kind of cool to divide my time between the two places and learn about the assistive technology, but then also more so implement it at Blossom.
Yeah, that sounds great. It's going to be a really great crossover. I'm excited to see what you do with that. So, okay, I have two questions that I ask everyone in our kind of podcast questions. Um, so first, what area of life or practice do you think OTs should play a bigger role?
Like play a bigger
Like,
role.
yeah, like where do you think OTs should be doing more than what they're doing right now? Or maybe it's an area that OTs really aren't in, but you think we should be there.
Yeah. I think honestly places like Blossom, more community-based places. I feel like a lot of times I know so far we had to write our literature review paper for our capstone project, and within the different studies, it said that community populations are not as focused on. So I think even with my capstone project, just working with community-based places, because oftentimes you work in clinics,
Yeah,
hospitals, but focusing on that community aspect as well.
love that. Okay, and then lastly, what current occupation brings you joy?
Current occupation that brings me joy is pickleball. I am the CW pickleball co-president, so I love being active with my friends, playing pickleball and tennis. Brings me a
Awesome.
lot of joy.
I love that. Awesome.
Mhm.
Are you able to, well, I guess you can do pickleball indoors, right? So you can
Yes.
still play through the winter. So you don't have to
Yes.
give it up over the winter break. All
Yeah.
right. Excellent. Well, Chloe, thank you so much for spending time with me today. So excited to see what happens with your capstone and continued on. Congratulations on finishing up your bachelor's this weekend, and we'll look forward to seeing what the future brings for you.
Awesome. Thank you so much.